Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
Welcome to the O Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, is my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
That was a very fast week.
Very fast week, indeed.
Time seems to fly.
Speaking of time traveling, or going back in time, there's never been a moment in history, and not to get sidetracked, but never been a moment in history when I want to go to some other time than we're in right now.
Yeah, really.
So I think it's only fitting that today we are celebrating the just recently passed 35th anniversary of the classic film. What is it?
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, folks.
Is there many movies as good as Back to the Future that hold up this good?
Well, it's interesting because I just rewatched it last night, the original, that is.
Right.
And it makes me think, the first episode we did with our top 5 films, I mean, we could do that right now and it would be a totally different list.
Yeah.
And this would have to be on that list. I mean, I watched the whole thing and thought, wow, this is, I always knew it was a great film, of course, but this is such a fantastic movie, just solid.
Interesting enough, my favorite of the trilogy is part 2.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Which most people, I think that's their least favorite.
Yeah.
But I always love part 2. I love the way they thought of the future, kind of a sci-fi kind of nerd. We're going to talk about a little bit of all 3, even though we're celebrating the original because it's the 35th, but they're so tied together. I know there's people that pick them apart. Oh, well, when Biff did this, that would have caused this.
That's hardcore nerdville right there.
Yeah. I mean, this is a hard movie to top.
So before we get into it, though, if you are not currently following us on social media, please make sure that you do. You can find us basically on every social media platform out there. You can find us on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel, which we'd love for you to subscribe to and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we release a new episode out there. And on social, we are OB Podcast, which is at OHB as in brother podcast. So please follow us. And we also have a listener line. We'd love for you to drop us a message at 407-476-8781. Just to say hello, or if you've got any suggestions for topics for future episodes, we would love to hear it. And we know that we've got listeners all across the country and around the world, actually, right? We've got some, right?
Yep. Hi to those people in France that listen to us.
Hello to our France listeners. We appreciate you.
And if you have any suggestions, any negative comments, we'll take them.
Yeah, we've got thick skin.
Yeah.
Mike's used to being criticized, so it's
Dan can take it.
So how are we getting into this? I mean, this could be a long one.
Yeah, it's. We could talk about this till the 36th anniversary. To me, it's the relationship with Marty and Doc that I just love. It's the banter. It's the way they go with each other. And
now we're, originally we introduced the film, and I had this really what I thought was such a great joke that I was going to introduce by saying, what film is it we're going to talk about today? And then you were going to say Spaceman from Pluto, which of course was the original.
Yes.
That the studio pitched.
Yes.
And I just, again, I digress.
That sounds like a bad Eddie Murphy movie. I think they made that movie.
Yeah, thank God that died a quick death. Well, it's a funny story too, because the story that I heard was Bob Gale saying that they got this note from the studio and they said, movie title with future in it, that's never going to work. And so they pitched Spaceman from Pluto. And I think the story goes, Zemeckis wrote back to the studio head and said, oh, thanks for your humorous suggestion. We all had a good laugh about it. And then they never heard from this guy again.
It's weird because when I heard Huey Lewis talk about it, writing the song, and they described it to him, and they seemed to pitch it perfectly. And of course, he's written, what did he write? All three different songs for the trilogy?
I'm not sure that he did. I know that he did. Well, I know ZZ Top did what they did. One of the main ones.
That's right.
3.
Right.
But yeah, he did not want to. He said, "I don't want to write a song called Back to the Future." I'm not interested in that. And then we got The Power of Love, which, oh my God, what a great track. And that was top of the charts before the movie even came out.
Right. Was it on their album, what was their big hit album?
You know what? I don't think so. I think it was just on the soundtrack because, yeah, you're thinking of Sports. But no, I don't know. It was pretty sure it wasn't on there.
And then he makes a cameo, which is pretty funny because Marty's playing the song.
Right.
While you're just too loud, kids.
Now, before we got on air, you were talking about, I think you mentioned Eric Stoltz, who, of course, for those that may not know, he was originally cast as Marty McFly.
Mm-hmm. And they shot a good chunk of the movie.
It was about 5-6 weeks, I think, that they were in production.
Yeah.
And, seeing some of I haven't seen a ton of footage of that, but what I've seen, and of course, and this is to quote Zemeckis, basically saying that the comedic aspect just wasn't there. And I think of Eric Stoltz, I think of him as more of a dramatic actor, and but the clips I saw, it was actually it made me think, geez, it would have been interesting to see a full cut of that, a full version of that with like from in a dramatic form. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've seen clips
totally
of it.
Different movie.
Yeah, I've seen clips of it. Michael J. Fox is just kind of get that squeaky voice when he gets excited. What do you mean, Doc? And he's just so perfect for this movie. But we're both fans of Eric Stoltz.
I love Eric Stoltz.
We like him as an actor.
Love Eric Stoltz, and when he played Rocky Dennis in the movie The Mask,
right? It was great
with Cher and Some Kind of Wonderful. I love that film as well.
We even like The Fly too. We're
right.
One of the two of the few maybe that like that one.
And now he was not the only sort of substituted character. So tell everybody that, for those that may not know, who else did we not see again starting with Back to the Future 2?
Yeah, in the first movie, Claudia Wells played Jennifer Parker. But I went to see when Back to the Future 3 came out, which was exactly a year after Back to the Future. This is like the first time I think they shot 2 movies back to back. They shot.
Well, no, wait a second. Wasn't it the second and third?
Yeah.
Oh, is
they
that
shot
what you
back.
said?
Yeah,
I
was saying.
I thought you said the original.
Yeah,
okay.
No, they shot Back to the Future 2 and 3 together.
Yes, right.
And so when 3 came out, there was a lot of movie houses that were like, come on in and see all 3 pictures for the price of 1. So I literally went, and it was the day before it was coming out. So I saw the whole trilogy.
Wow.
And like I was saying, Jennifer was played by Claudia Wells in the first movie.
Who was great. She was really good.
Yeah, she was fine.
It's a different kind of chemistry, but...
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, they like her better. And I'm like, how can you say that? It wasn't that big of a part.
But now, am I correct in that I recently saw an interview with her talking about how she was on some ABC series. They didn't pick it up. They didn't, she shot a pilot. They didn't pick it up. And then ABC, who was producing whatever this series was, I don't know, they then changed their mind after she was already committed to the film. And I think, is that why we didn't see her then
Yeah.
reprise the role? Okay.
Yeah, there was a time, there was a commitment with something else.
Okay.
And I'm sure, I've heard her say, she cringed not being able to be part of,
Yeah.
it was such a big iconic movie.
Now, for those who haven't seen it, Josh Gad has been doing this Reunited Apart series on his YouTube channel for
Very funny.
it's really good for charity. He's done like about 5 or 6 episodes, and Back to the Future was the second episode, and she's actually in that.
Yes. She's like, oh, who did we forget? Who could we got everybody. And of course Biff wasn't in it, but they shot him later. Like
That's right.
A week later he came in. But before I get off the point I was making, when I went to the theater to see all three, because what they did is Back to the Future 2, and everyone knows this, it's the end of Back to the Future 1, shot for shot remake.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so they reshot it with the new Jennifer,
who I absolutely love. I mean, can I just say Leaving Las Vegas and then
yeah,
just
I know.
end it there?
She's
Elizabeth Shue is just
Elizabeth
phenomenal.
Shue's fantastic.
And she's beautiful too.
And that was the thing when I watched the Josh Gad thing. I'm like, the women all look better than the guys.
Oh my God, isn't that true?
They all looked
really,
great.
They did. They really did. Lea Thompson.
But before I forget this point, so the garage opens. Marty sees the truck, and then he walks in the garage, and he looks out to see Jennifer, and he says, what does she say? Something to him like, hey, stranger, or something like that.
Right. And then he gives her that look, and she's like, you act as if you haven't seen me in a week.
Right. Everybody, when that happened in the theater, everybody yelled out almost at the same time, that's not Jennifer. I thought that was really funny. It was almost like a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of moment.
Yeah.
But who else? We got another character that didn't survive that went to litigation over it.
Yeah. Crispin Glover.
Yeah, Crispin Glover, who's a weird cat, man. This is a weird dude.
Listen, now we go back with Crispin to the Dave Letterman days when
exactly
that infamous interview with David Letterman.
Was that was after Back to the Future? Must have been.
Well, I think that probably would have been around the time of, am I getting this right, Mike? River's Edge? Is that the name of the film that he was in?
Exactly, with River Phoenix and
Rest in peace. Yeah, and so it seems to me it was around that time, and I couldn't tell you the year of that film offhand, so I don't know. But
I don't know if this dude does drugs. If he doesn't, he sure plays it well.
I don't think so. This is a guy that probably would be the first to say he's an eccentric fellow.
Very.
And, this could be an episode all unto itself, to be honest with you, about, him and Bob Gale, the Crispin versus Bob, it could be, but I have I'm kind of interested to hear your take on him here. And then I can kind of comment, but
yeah,
I'll let you riff a little bit on George McFly.
He did the Letterman show. And right. I think he realized Letterman, that was when Letterman used to tease kind of guests a little bit, and especially if they were quirky.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, go to YouTube immediately and look this up.
Look it up. Because he's interviewing, and all of a sudden Crispin Glover goes, you can, I could throw a kick and hit you on the nose, and he stands up and kicks right at Letterman, and Letterman's like, I'm 40 years old, I don't need this. And Letterman walks off. And the guys, leaves him standing there. So it was a whacked out moment.
It was wild.
And we used to watch Letterman religiously back then. We were like, what, is this real? So anyways, his manager made a huge miscalculation of his worth, thinking, hey, they're making everybody sign for part 2. They can't make it without you. You're in a beautiful place. We're going to ask for all of, we're going to have them back a truck up to your house and unload money. and they were like, no, we're not going to pay you that. And so they got into a rift about it, and they just recast him with another guy.
So it's interesting you say that. So we're going to have to debate this a little bit. And
Okay.
now this is based on interviews that I've watched with Crispin
And
himself.
I just saw one recently too, so it'll be interesting to hear what
Okay.
you have to say.
And you must have, and we'll put this out on our social media channels because I know you've got some sweet collectible items
Oh yeah.
to
Oh
celebrate back
yeah.
to. Yeah. But in these interviews, he talks about this falling out with Bob Gale. Of course, the guy who wrote it with Bob Zemeckis, or
Hmm.
Robert Zemeckis, like I know him personally.
Yeah.
But he comments about what you just said. The
Right.
perception is, and of course his reputation would lead you to believe that it's true, that it was a falling out over money, and he himself says people thought that I was demanding to be paid the same as Michael J. Fox and all of this, when in reality that wasn't the case. But what ended up happening is, what's the name of the guy that they cast in the roles in part
Um,
two?
I don't even know. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
it didn't
I
really
get
matter.
no, it didn't. But I guess what they did was they had the casts, the molds that they used for Crispin Glover in the first film.
Yeah, because they aged him.
Right. And they
Hmm.
used those with this recast actor.
Right.
And I guess there's some, the use of identity. I mean, I don't know what it is legally, but there's something there where they ended up, he filed a lawsuit
Right.
and it went to court. And I don't know if it was settled out, but, I think they came to some agreement over it. But
Yes.
in these interviews, he talks about that. And, you can see it's still a very sensitive subject for him to talk about. Now, it sounds like from what he said that he and Zemeckis have since, kind of mended ways, and he's actually worked with Zemeckis since then.
Yeah, I think we saw the same interview because this was fairly recent,
Hmm.
but I still think there was some kind of debate over money, whether he admits to it or not.
Well, I mean, isn't that always part of the equation, I suppose?
Yeah, because they tried to sell the reason he got so ticked off is he thought it made him look bad because this other
Yes.
actor he said was terrible.
Right.
The guy was hanging upside down, for crying out loud. And I remember when we first saw it, we were like, "Is that him? We can't, And then you quickly figure out it's not him
Well,
because
listen, I didn't quickly figure that out.
oh really?
Yeah, I'm one of those that had no clue until pretty
Yeah.
recently.
So you were confused.
I just didn't know, which I guess is a testament to the work they did, to pass it off. He said to this day, there's people that still believe he was in that film when he wasn't. And
Right.
I can see that where that would be frustrating. And, I have to say, I had a little bit of a newfound respect for him listening to him in these interviews, trying to kind of take it from his perspective. But, I agree. There was probably a little bit more to the story.
Yes. Was he in a suit when this interview? Was he dressed up in a
Yes.
suit?
Yes.
Yeah. So I saw the same interview.
Well, there was a
That's
couple of
funny.
them. I saw him. It was like 3 different radio interviews that he did.
Yeah. And
And
now he was in part two because they used clips from part one and part two.
hmm,
So technically, he did appear in part two, but I
yeah,
think that was in his contract, which is in most contracts. When you sign a movie, like look at the Avengers movies, right? Those guys play them in 8 different movies. When you sign a contract with Marvel, you make a deal. Hey, if there's any sequels, you're agreeing to do it right now. So if you sign, you're in for 5 movies potentially.
right.
And I think that's what they did with him. So they were able to use that footage because he had signed a contract saying even his likeness could be used. So that's how they kind of wrangled around the legal stuff. But I always figured it out pretty early when he was hanging upside down. There was something with the voice
Yeah,
that
and
was just
listen,
off.
the one thing I would want to say, go on record as saying is that his performance in the original film really is fantastic.
It is good. It
You know,
is.
and for all his quirks and the way, you know, and the other members of the cast have talked about this in interviews and things, and you know, he was certainly unpredictable and eccentric and all that, but I think that just added to that character. It was perfectly fitting for George McFly.
Yeah, because he was such a nerd and, into all these nerdy things. And he was a good actor to age,
Yeah.
because when you see him at the end,
Hmm.
and Lea Thompson goes through 4 or 5 different, and so did Michael J. Fox played his daughter. So
Right, right.
I mean, the,
That's
the
creepy.
the acting in the movie was so fun because it must have been a fun movie to do.
Yeah.
Thomas Wilson, who I
Hmm.
thought was really great as Biff,
He's fantastic.
and all the different, when they go back to the old West, he plays an incarnation of his great grandfather or something. And I just thought he was really funny. Every
Yeah,
time I see him, he's really funny. I'm surprised he doesn't work more. I don't see him more.
yeah, maybe he's on the stage or something. Well, not now, but
Yeah.
you know, maybe he's on the stage or something.
Well, he still looks like, that's the thing. When they did that Josh Gad bit, I'm like, oh, they could do 4.
I
They could
know.
do 4.
And they kind of talk about it briefly, but oh God, I would love that. I would
Yeah,
love.
there was a quote that I think Zemeckis gave, that there will never ever be a part 4. You can lock
Mhm.
that down in history.
Right, right.
There's a video game. I don't know if I have it for the Xbox.
Hmm.
It's like Back to the Future Part 4. All Michael J. Fox plays his father in it because it's a smaller part. So somebody else plays Marty. Christopher Lloyd plays Doc Brown in the video game. It's kind of like one of these games where you see a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah.
And I think either Bob Gale or Zemeckis, one of the two, said, if we had done a part 4, this is kind of what it would have been.
And how many times did we enjoy the Back to the Future attraction at Universal Studios? Can we talk about that for a second?
That's amazing that's gone.
I know.
And of course, it's my other favorite, The Simpsons.
Right, right.
So I'm loving that. But, Universal, they're way, unlike Disney where nothing changes ever. Universal, we've talked about this before because you're a Disney pass holder. I always want new stuff. I tear out the old ride, put in a new ride. Who cares?
Yeah.
And here, Universal stays way ahead of that. Like before it gets stale, they did it with Kong. It was the most popular attraction in the park, and people were satisfied waiting an hour. They tore it out.
Yeah, that Back to the Future, just that attraction, it's just so, it's such a specific time and place in that
Yeah.
theme park, I mean, God, we must have been on that 100 plus times. Can
Yep.
we talk about one of the most predominant and significant characters in this trilogy of films, actually?
Yeah, who would that be?
Casey Zamasco is 3D, of course. So we talked about this very briefly before we got on air. And
Yes.
first of all,
and I don't know what's coming here.
well, I didn't know that his character's name was 3D. I didn't look that close at the credits.
Yeah.
But it's funny because when I was rewatching the original last night, to some point, I literally said out loud, "What's with the 3D glasses?
Right.
What is the significance of 1955 and 3D glasses? Do you have any idea? What is that?"
Well, back in the 50s, they
Now, of course, you were what, in your early 20s at that
That's when they had a lot of those goofy 3D movies,
Right.
And
But I'm
We
like, can
went
he
through it.
see out of these things? I mean, it just made no
No,
sense.
not. It's like it's the same thing as putting on a pair of 3D glasses. Like when you go to Disney and you see now that it's really cool the 3D they do. But like one of the Friday the 13th, actually part 3 was in 3D.
I mean, he's just going through his whole life with these 3D glasses on. It just
Yeah,
made no
and
sense.
it looks like me in our logo.
That's
Our
right.
logo for
I
brother.
thought of that.
I'm wearing them,
I
so I
thought of
guess
that.
I'm the new 3D.
See, you were just trying to do your best Casey Zemeckis. That's what
Exactly.
it
That
was.
is a funny thing.
Well, it's
but
funny too, because I told you recently I was watching 3 O'Clock High, which of course he stars in too. But
yes.
so, you wanted to talk about 2 and 3, which I haven't seen 2 and 3 for quite some time. So you're, I think, more up on that than I am. I mean, the original is a little bit more, and mom took me to, it kills me because mom took me to see one of these in the theater, and I'd be damned if I can remember which one it was. This
You
was,
figure it's 90 and 91.
well, no,
You're
here's
kind
the,
of a little old to be going to the theater with mom.
here's, okay, let me try to justify a little bit based on the
Yeah.
facts I have at hand.
All right.
So the original, of course, comes out July 3rd, 1985, which and
Right.
would say, but just to put this in the capsule, it's July 6th, 2020 right now. And I found it so funny watching it again last night to see that they were going to 2015, which just seems so crazy now. But
I know.
I'd love to go back to 2015 myself right now, quite frankly. But
Yeah, me too.
they, but 85, and then the second one comes out in 89, the Back to the Future 3 in 1990. So
1990.
yeah, when I looked up the release dates, I was still living in Massachusetts, and damn it, I was hoping I could narrow it down a little bit to figure out which one we went to. My guess is because I was getting ready to move away from home at that time in 1990. I wonder if she didn't take me to, I know it wasn't 3, so it was either the original or it was the sequel. I don't remember. But hey, and real quick, you know who did the cinematography on this film, which probably nobody cares about other than us.
Oh,
but
I do, because he's a
who is
famous
it?
director now. Oh, I
Look,
can't think of it off the top of my
okay,
head.
the man's name is Dean Cundy.
Oh, okay. No, it's not who I thought.
Now, do you know Dean? This is just a quick side note between you and I, a sidebar rather. Is it, what other trilogy of films was he the cinematographer on?
Geez, I don't know. I don't recognize the name.
Halloween 1, 2, and 3, my friend.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that something?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a wild credit to share.
Yeah, and I didn't even know they had the same cinematographer the first 3 Halloween movies.
Yeah, and he did Psycho too. I mean, his resume is ridiculous. But anyways, I just needed to point that out. I knew you'd appreciate that.
Going back to Casey Zemesco there about the 3D.
We're going to do 20-minute riff on
I know about the 3D glasses, because you were too young for this stuff. They were trying to come up with gimmicks all the time like this. So I've been to a few 3D movies when they were like, the paper,
yeah,
like Friday the 13th Part 3. I'm sure I saw that in the theater. There was movies like Earthquake. I mean,
yes.
the movie Earthquake.
Isn't that Charlton Heston?
That's Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
And that was at Universal.
I was going to say another good Universal attraction.
Yeah, and it was terrible in Orlando. I think it's still in California.
Yeah.
But that one was terrible in California. It was more like a shake and bake than an earthquake. But when you went to the movies, right, they advertised it. Come, sense around, feel the action.
Yeah.
So you'd go to the movies and they had these 2 gigantic boxes at the back of the theater, and they would rumble the hell out of them when the earthquake scene would come on. So
Right.
you'd feel like it was an earthquake in the theater. It was just, they used to do goofy things like that. And I remember SCTV, which is like Saturday Night Live, they did a spoof on it where they did a movie in sense around and smell around. Smell the action. Yeah.
Smellorama. You know what I didn't know is one of the executive producers of all of these films, I think, of all three, was,
Spielberg,
well, of course, yep.
right?
But no, Kathleen Kennedy.
Oh, really? She was
Yeah,
working with Spielberg at the time, huh?
exactly, with Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, her resume is ridiculous too, but of course, with the Star Wars franchise, we know her.
Yeah.
So I
Did
wasn't sure if you realized that.
did she team up with when Tom Cruise started his own company?
Mm,
Didn't he team up with Kathleen Kennedy, or was it somebody else? Maybe you
gosh,
don't know.
that I don't know. I
Okay,
don't
we'll have
know.
to look that up.
Yeah,
Check it
but
out.
it was her, Steven Spielberg, and Frank Marshall. They were the executive producers on the film.
Wow, she
Yeah.
must have been. I mean, she looks young now. She must have been a kid.
Yeah, I know. You're right, because she does. She
Yeah,
does.
she's out at Disney now.
You know, it's a great soundtrack for this film. Great score for the film too by Alan Silvestri. It's just like it's such an iconic score.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's on the level of like Jaws and those famous. I just saw him last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who's the guy?
Doing research for the episode, you mean?
No, it was the Boston Pops.
Oh, I see what you mean. You talking about the current Boston Pops?
No, no, the
Oh,
Star Wars.
oh, John Williams.
John Williams.
John
How can I
Williams.
not think of John Williams' name?
Oh God,
He
he's a
was
legend.
on.
Yeah.
He's always on locally here because
Hmm.
I'm in Boston, so
Right.
he was on and said, and again, he looks great too. He
Yeah.
looks like he could easily be up there conducting the
Amazing.
Boston Pops still.
Talk a little bit about Michael J. Fox, and first of all, for those that are listening, please consider donations to Michael J. Fox's Parkinson's Foundation.
Yeah, he does a lot of work with that.
An incredible amount of work with that, and such a worthy charitable organization. So,
Yeah. He always teases himself and self-deprecates him,
right,
about like he'll talk about something like Teen Wolf or a movie like that he was in. And
right.
he'll say, when I watch these movies, I can see my hand shaking a little bit.
Well, and
You
that's what I
know,
wanted you to talk about was how did he come to get connected with the film? Can you give us a quick sort of summary of that?
well, he was working on Family Ties at the
Right.
time, and somebody had seen him. I think it was Steven Spielberg had seen him and thought he would be a good fit. Like you had said, it wasn't working with Eric Stoltz. It's
Right.
funny because they halted production, and the cast really didn't know what was going on. Michael J. Fox was filming Family Ties at the time, and they wouldn't let him out of that deal because that was like a number 10 show or top 10 show. They gave him permission to do it at
Right.
night so he would film Family Ties during the day, and then he would go off and he would film Back to the Future at night. I mean,
Did he ever sleep? I mean,
I
good
know that.
Lord.
I thought the same thing. He talked, he would be asleep in the trailer, they'd wake him up and he'd do the scene and go back to sleep.
Right.
But you couldn't see that in his performance, that's for sure.
No, it's just amazing. Mark McClure and Wendy Jo Sperber, who played the McFly siblings, Dave and Linda,
Right.
I didn't know this until recently, again, watching some interview footage, but I guess they had been in several films together as well. Had
And Mark
worked with.
McClure, I think, is a director now.
Oh, is he now? Okay.
I
And
think so, yeah.
they'd worked with Zemeckis for quite some time before this. They were in the movie, what was it, Used Cars, which didn't do very well at the box office. But so they had a pretty strong relationship, which as little as they're in the film, you can see that
Right.
chemistry between them as brother and sister works pretty well. I love that scene when Marty comes back and they're at the table and he's like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Yeah.
I always wear a suit to the office.
Yeah, exactly. Because originally he worked at Burger King, I think.
That's right. He did.
Was.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, you
But
know what I wanted to mention, and maybe you can look this up, is in the very beginning of the film, and again, I just rewatched the original again last night. In the very opening sequence, when you see all the clocks, and one of them is a clock with like this guy hanging off the second hand or whatever of one of the clocks, right?
he's what?
He's like hanging from one of the hands of the clock, of this
Oh,
clock.
really? No,
Yeah.
this is something.
Okay, so and I want to get your take on this. So you see this in the very opening sequence. Well, then if you fast forward to the end of the film, or towards the end of the film, when
Right.
Doc Brown, of course, is up on the clock tower,
Mhm.
hanging from the hand, right, when he's trying to get he's trying to connect the power plug there or whatever.
Right.
So
I've got a picture of it in front of me.
Okay, so here's what I need you to figure out. It's a huge, first of all, it's a huge foreshadow of that scene in the film, right?
Right.
But I want to believe that this is an homage to an old silent film actor.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
It's like
Harold Lloyd.
Harold Lloyd.
Yes.
That has to be a tip of the hat to the Harold Lloyd film.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. I can tell just by looking at the picture.
And we know that from film class, from film
exactly.
school.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't tell you the name of that particular picture way back in the day, but so you didn't recall that as well, right?
I didn't. This is the first time I've seen it. The movie Harold Lloyd was in was called Safety Last. I remember that because I think it's on Criterion. It's
wow.
a Criterion movie.
Now is that a short film?
It's a silent film because it was back in the 1920s.
Yes.
And he did a lot of silent film work, and he did a lot of things. Like he used to be a great stunt man.
Yeah,
like
very
do a lot
the
of stuff without
physicality.
wires.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was crazy stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, well, there you go, folks. Another nugget.
Yeah, you can look that up on Reddit. I just typed in like guy hanging from a clock and in Back to the Future, and that's what came up.
Well, that shows you how classic that is.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on this one, Dan?
No, just kind of like you said at the beginning, which is just such a fantastic film. I mean, I easily would have had this on my top 5 film list if we were going back again to redo that episode.
If we were able to slice things into categories, top 5 drama, top 5 sci-fi, top 5 comedy, then it would be easier to fit in movies like Back to the Future. I still would have a tough time fitting it into my top 5 all-time movies. But comedies, no doubt.
Hands down, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did have one other little nugget I wanted to mention, which is James Tolkien, who played Mr. Strickland in the.
Oh, right.
He, at the time when he got the call to come in.
He was a Western star, wasn't he?
Well, it's interesting at the time, and this is why I wanted to mention this to you.
Yes.
And again, it's another sidebar between brothers, but you know what he was doing on Broadway at the time when they reached out to him?
I don't know.
Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, wow. I know he was a big time actor.
Yeah.
And I watched something recently he was in, and it said his name, which meant nothing to me. And then I read something in the credits, and it said, he played Strickland. I was like, wow.
Now, it's somewhat of a dumb question, I suppose, but was he recast in the third as something else? Is he in the third?
He is in the third because he's on a horse.
Is.
Yeah, he's in the third movie. He's on a horse with this kid.
See, I haven't seen it in so long.
Yeah, I think he plays like Biff. He plays like his ancestor. Because you're back, but yeah, he was in it. I just remember him sitting on a horse,
right?
And he was like, "See, son, that's what you got to be, disciplined." So I think he didn't play himself. He didn't play, the principal, but he played the principal's father.
Okay.
but he's
Okay.
definitely in part 3. We talked about how movies have casts and they stay together for a long time. That must be a really unique, having done plays when you do them for 6 weeks, I feel like, wow, I know these people, like everything about them. I can't imagine over the course of, 20 years working with people on and off. That must be just fantastic.
That's a significant amount of time to have spent with people, and a trilogy of films that is just so successful.
Yeah. It's one of the trilogies I'll pull out at any given time, or if I'm flipping the channel and it's on, I usually will stay at least for 15 minutes until a commercial comes or something and watch it, because it's just one of those all-time favorites.
Yeah, I couldn't turn it off last night when I put it on. Speaking of turning it off,
Yeah,
I,
that's going to get cut.
I think it's time to wrap up another episode.
Yep.
So
This was a special edition episode.
a special edition episode. We couldn't let a monumentous anniversary like this pass by and not comment on it. So,
And I'll be interested, Dan, because I know they're doing a box set. I have 4 box sets of Back to the Future right now. I have a Steelbook set. I have a Digibook set. I have the flux capacitor set. So I'll take some pictures and you can put them up on social media.
yeah, we got to see that.
And I have a couple of other special trinkets. But I won't say what they are. But you got to see them.
Well, I was frantically looking through memorabilia earlier before we get on air, trying to find because I know I have the ticket stub for this movie somewhere.
Oh wow!
In my collection, so if I can dig it out, I'll
yeah,
put
you
that
used
out
to
on.
keep those.
I did, yeah.
As soon as I walked out,
I had a little collectible case that well, you do that even with the birthday cards I send you. So,
I do it with
you've
our
never been
brothers and
sentimental.
sisters. No.
But this has been a good one. It's been fun.
Yes. Always a good one.
Always a good one. Yeah. Back to the Future, folks. Go check it out. Well, for now, I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.